Hello, everyone. Hey, guys, we're going to get on with the next session. So if you're having a conversation, can you carry it on at the back? If you're coming to this session, so this session is about solar power panel discussion. It's about simplifying solar for people. We've got some real experts here that can answer your questions. We'll get into the nitty-gritty a bit more than we did in the last session. Just quickly, we've had our first prize winner of the home assessment from What's Going Down is Tim Lee Fenwick. Tim Lee Fenwick, if you're out there, congratulations. So let's get on with this. Okay, so yes, as you said, lots of people in this area already have solar, lots are looking at getting it, and it's an amazing solution to a lot of the problems we talked about earlier, but there can be obstacles that get in the way as well. So we're going to talk through all this kind of stuff. So on this panel, joining me is Ellie Kalmier from the UNSW and the Australian Photovoltaic Institute. We have hang on a second, Bryn Hernandez from Ausgrid over there. We've got local resident Fred Hopley. Here's Fred. And we've got Brent Clark from Wattblock and Ian Moxon from What's Going Down, who work with the council on a lot of solar issues and consult. There will be a Q&A session at the end, so again, get your questions, store them away. This is a very good panel to answer your complex questions, can I say. So it's an absolute brains trust up here. All right, so just so much talk. Before we start, we're just going to get a one-liner from everyone about your area of solar expertise, what you kind of know about. So we'll start, let's kick it off.
Yes, so I'm Fred. I'm a local resident and passionate about moving to a fully sustainable energy system. And I've helped schools, businesses and homes put solar on for the last 10 years on a volunteer basis.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I work with the UNSW at SPRI and with the Australian Photovoltaic Institute, and I've helped work on the Sunspot project for nearly 2 years now, helping people to start their solar journey.
G'day, I'm Ian from What's Going Down. I guess you might say I'm an early adopter. We went off-grid 20 years ago this year. And so over that time, I've been installing solar on and off as an assistant, but also advocating for solar and providing presentations and information, solar sessions for councils.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Bryn from Ausgrid. I'm representing the network which connects your home to the broader electrical system. In a previous life or workplace, I also delivered about 1 megawatt of solar, rooftop solar for local government, and joined Ausgrid about 18 months ago.
And I'm Brent Clark, and I've been a Strata Committee member for 20 years. And for the last 10 years, I've been helping strata communities across Sydney to move to renewable energy, EV charging, electric heat pumps. And we just did the Electrify Strata project to map the 50,000 strata buildings in Sydney. And they're at about 3.3% penetration.
Brent, I'm very glad to have you here. I have a lot of questions for you as the day goes on, but let's get into it. Let's start with Ian. Ian, what are the benefits of installing rooftop solar, and why hasn't everyone done it yet?
That's a fine question. Look, millions of Australians have done it. So we're talking about a third, past a quarter, on the way to a third of the housing stock of Australia. It's really a sensible investment. You return, in our region, the amount of sunlight that we're bathed in, you return that investment in be sort of 3 to 5 years is what you'd expect for Sydney-siders. And the technology has become so much cheaper than what it was a few years ago, and it's improved both quality and safety-wise. You get to add value to your property, and one of the experiences that we found when we did it 20 years ago, on the day that you go and buy a system and get it installed, you actually kind of peg down the price of electricity right there. And so that's a really a great way to empower your energy use and in the current climate to also save money. And I think that's a really smart thing for us to do. You have the opportunity to produce your own power on your own roof and then enjoy that power for the next couple of decades after you've paid it off. So I think it's a great investment in that way.
There's obviously things that get in the way of it. So, for instance, let's actually ask, who wants to get solar, but, for instance, the upfront cost kind of gets in the way? Put up your hands if that's the case here. Who wants to get solar, but they've got shading issues? They've got trees above the house. Yes, problem with the northern beaches, too beautiful, too many trees. Is that the problem, right?
It is. It is.
It is one of the problems. Who, for instance, rents, and that's part of the problem there. There's all of these problems that get in the way of getting this kind of stuff. So we're going to talk through these issues today and try to find if there's solutions. And look, it's not necessarily the case that every single person will be able to get solar on the roof, and we'll try and talk through all those kind of things today.
Yeah, look, I think a number of people who've already jumped into that have probably got the easy, obvious roof space. They've got the budget to go out and do it. So, that's the kind of low-hanging fruit. That's already been done, and that's brilliant. There's another batch of people who are renting or in strata, and that's got some obstacles, but certainly there's lots of examples. No one needs to reinvent the wheel, and I'm sure Brent's going to give us a lot of good information about that. But I think there's a large number of people who are unsure. They hear things in the media about, being, can they trust the supplier? Are they getting a good system? Is it a really cheap system? Or the potential of something like a fire with a battery, those kind of things really put people off. But I can assure you there's good info out there. Council has a lot of good info. We enjoy so much light in our country that even roofs that are facing south enjoy more sunlight that you can generate power from than people in the Northern Hemisphere. So, on their best south-facing roofs, which is the ideal direction. So we're really bathed in sunlight in this country. And so perhaps what you need is a little bit of advice to help sort of steer through some of the questions you have. You might want to just talk to somebody. Council's offering service where you can do that, and there's a number of other services out there.
Yeah, and that is something. It's interesting. Even within those people who, I bump into this all the time, right? You find people who have the money, have a great roof for solar, want to get solar, and still haven't got it for years. And that's because they do hit these trust barriers. You're not sure about it, or the first person you talk to when you look into it either confuses you or sounds a bit dodgy, or you get these calls. So, as I said, the council's there to try and overcome some of these problems. There's also things that we can do to overcome that kind of technical issue. You may think, I don't know the kind of technical stuff. So I want to ask Ellie about this. There's some tools out there to kind of help you figure out how much solar can I put on my roof? How much benefit would I get? How much would I cost? How much would I save? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sunspot is one of those tools. Sunspot is a project that's been created by UNSW and the APVI, and it's totally independent, and it's government-backed, and it's free Australia-wide at the moment. So we think it's a really great starting point for people who have been confused at the beginning of a solar journey, who don't necessarily know who to trust, and you want somewhere that's going to be independent and give you some decent advice about where to start. So Sunspot takes you through first couple of steps, asks you about your kind of energy usage in pretty general terms, so you don't have to have a huge background of solar and electrical knowledge going into it. And then we provide you with some high-level estimates and then the ability to actually map onto your roof solar panels to see what might fit and where they might fit and where they might be, too shaded or things like that. And actually, in the Northern Beaches Council area, you guys are super lucky because your council has been supporting Sunspot for a number of years, which means that we've been able to provide what's called LiDAR data, which is a very particular type of data that tells us all about your roof and the solar resource available on your roof and the shading, the tilt, the orientation, all these technical things that are quite baffling as a first-timer, Sunspot takes care of for you. And then, so hopefully you've seen on the screen popping up a couple of just screenshots from the tool itself. So you can see an example, all those colourful dots are telling you about where on your roof is going to be potentially good for solar. Red dots are good in this case. And it'll give you a bit of an estimate about the potential solar output on your roof as well as the bill savings. All the good stuff. You can get really technical if you want. But
you can. And just again to point out that there are a lot of different levels of interest from people. So you've got your full-on solar energy nerds who want to go into every little aspect of this. You might be just like, I just want to cut my bills and get a solar panel. You don't have to go through all the kind of technical stuff as well. Find a good provider. Talk to your neighbours who've got it and go, who did you use? Did they do a good job? what did it cost? I'll go talk to 2 or 3 people, get competing quotes, I'm done. You don't even have to get into it at this kind of level as well. But if you do want to, this is a great starting point for actually looking at this kind of stuff as well. And a quick question, I've got a quick question. Given I've got so many nerds here, energy nerds, right? It's a great resource. I should carry them at all times. I know years ago when I was first getting solar, shading was seen as a really bad thing. Like, you know, if you might be that, you know, you've got a tree that kind of shades part of the roof at some point of the day and later, and all the panels will be kind of linked up, and if one was getting shaded, it kind of messed up the rest of them. What is the technology nowadays that you can have on your solar panels to make it so that even if there's shading on this one's still going hell for leather? Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, sure. There's a couple of technologies. There's DC optimizers and there are micro inverters. And
such technical names. They need better names, don't they? Anti-shady things. That's a better name, isn't it?
That's right. But so Craig was saying you used to have shading on one panel, then it dropped out the whole string of panels. Now you've got performance monitoring on every individual panel, and they operate like as an individual computer generating power and spitting it out, and that's reduced the problem. And the other thing is the performance of the panels got better in the last decade as well. So it's just like computer chips. Every year you can buy a faster computer chip. Every year you can buy a higher performance solar panel.
And they're often cheaper.
Yeah, and they're cheaper. Anyway, you still should get them now, though. Okay, now, Brent, let's go to you. What about solar for strata? Lots of us live in apartment blocks. What about businesses and renters? Like, how do we overcome? That's where the kind of that's where a mismatch often happens. You know, and often, particularly renters are the ones that spend the largest proportion of their income on their electricity, but they can't get the solar on the roof. How do we overcome this?
Yeah, okay. So we've got a bunch of problems. We'll start with the renters. So today, your best option is to look up a scheme like Haystacks. So just Google Haystacks, and if you're a renter, you can actually buy some off-site solar that's in what's called a solar garden, that's not in the building that you live in. It might be out in regional New South Wales. And then you get a little income stream, and that can sometimes be connected on your own bill that you actually receive from your energy retailer, depending which energy retailer you're on for your own apartment. So at the moment, renters, your best bet is to buy some off-site solar panels that are away from the building. Then we're hoping over the next 12, 24 months, we'll follow what Germany did. And I heard the last panel discussion, it always seems to be Germany's doing this, Germany's doing that. Well, in Germany, they've approved balcony solar, and there are 400,000 regulated balcony solar installations, which as a renter, you can actually buy these kits, do it yourself, hang the solar panels on the balcony, and away you go. Can't do that here in Australia yet, but hoping that comes as well for the renters. So, okay, so that's renters. Now, strata. And this is the area that we work in most. The biggest challenge you've got is conflicting interests of different people. Remember, half the strata units in Australia are tenanted, or you've got an owner-investor, and then half of them are like owner-occupier. Now, you have to communicate with the people in your block. You have to try and get the other people that are in your block on the same page to go ahead and do either a solar system that feeds the common services, might power the lift, the lighting in the car park and the pool, or now there's a solution from developed homegrown in Melbourne from Illume Energy that allows you to share solar from a single solar system and connect it into multiple apartments, and it's got a software interface, and it's all measured and it's all fair, it's all equal. So that's another solution that's out there now for strata buildings. And then when you come to something like industrial, you've got more challenges as well there. So like Brookvale's a good example down here on the northern beaches of industrial business estates. And we've just got a photo up there. I'll just point out that, we'll just go back one. No, back. There. Okay, there are 55 strata buildings on the northern beaches today. Just to give you an idea, there's about 3,666 strata buildings in the northern beaches at the moment, and there's 55 of them that have solar today. But if you want to get a bit of rivalry going with the Shires, always a good place to pit the northern beaches against. They've got 3,800 stratas in the Shire, and they've got about 228 solar systems installed over there. So northern beaches, bit of catch-up work to do to catch up with the Shire on strata. If we move forward, we'll just have a look. This is a new development down in Newport at Beaconsfield. It's townhouses. It was built with solar and batteries for each townhouse from day one. Next slide. This is the Edgewater apartment building down at Bayview. Great example here because you had 33 units and the community got together and only 22 of the people in the apartment building wanted to share a solar system together. So those 22 people went out and pitched in the money to put shared solar just for the 22 of them. The other 11 that weren't interested didn't pay anything. And that works for a community like Edgewater at Bayview. And now we'll just have a look.
That's a great example, though. It's good to hear that kind of story. So you don't have to get 100% consensus to actually get it. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. And now this is an industrial estate down in Brookvale. And there's great potential for solar for businesses down there. And what happened at this particular estate, it is a strata, and there were two tenancies that really wanted solar. So they went out and put 30 kilowatt solar systems on themselves. You can see in one of the pictures there. But what they didn't realise is if you're on the top floor of an industrial estate, you don't actually own the roof on top of your industrial tenancy. That roof is actually common property, and it should actually be broken up and split based on unit entitlements with the people that are on the other floors of the building. So on the right-hand side of the screen there, you can actually see a solar engineer's gone and broken up by square metre, different colours, little plots of the roof area for all the other people in the industrial estate. And there's nothing they can do. Those two lucky ducks that put the big solar systems in early, they just got bigger than they deserved, but everyone else will be splitting up the roof space fairly and evenly.
And we discussed that in the last panel. I think there was a bit of a suggestion to Terry from the New South Wales Department that we want to go the way of Germany and make it compulsory, because I hate looking at these things and going, there's so much spare space there for solar. I have a real thing when I see industrial complexes. It just gives me a heart attack. I want more solar on those things. But it's good to see that they're kind of moving through this kind of... And look, the first people that try and do it, you hit the hassle, but you solve the problem for the next people, so keep it up. All right, let's move on to the next stage. So a lot of people in this room probably already got solar. The big question now is, should you be getting a battery? What do we need to know? Is it worth doing, Ian?
Look, so batteries, for many years I've been sort of encouraging people to buy batteries. Price-wise, it's been a little hard to make the argument considering the sort of warranties on batteries. It can be as much as 10 years on the sort of current chemistries of batteries. But we've just recently heard an announcement which is fantastic. Much like the other states across Australia, New South Wales government has introduced a rebate which starts in a few months' time. And so that will bring the sort of price point of the battery to the homeowner down well inside that payback period. The other thing that we've seen is the chemistries themselves have changed a bit, so we're seeing safer batteries, than what we've sort of had concerns about in the past with the chemistries and sort of thermal runaway and the like. We now, the majority of batteries that are being sold today are lithium iron phosphate, and there are other chemistries. There's about 10 other chemistries that are getting huge amounts of funding and research. The one that's kind of, almost upon us is sodium ion, and I expect we'll see those batteries really proliferate for households and for stationary energy. Maybe not quite as energy dense. The box might be a little bigger, but the elements itself are cheaper, and so the expectation is you can roll them out on the same production lines as lithium ion. You don't necessarily, at this point in time, they're actually sort of pitching the manufacturers of those, the large manufacturers around the planet, two in China, US and UK, are really pitching those battery chemistries at the moment for stationary energy. But, you know, companies like BYD who make cars, in April last year produced the first sodium-ion battery. So to sort of wrap that up, yes, I think batteries are great. I'd encourage everyone to get a battery. And at the moment, lithium iron phosphate is a good option. And certainly when the rebate comes along in the next couple of months, it puts us on a level playing field with the other states across Australia. And, you know, we're the big state. We're going to have a lot of batteries. It's going to make a big impact on our grid, I expect.
Just when you talk about safety there, because I think this is one of the misconceptions at the moment, because we see a lot about battery fires, which tend to be from EV bikes and that. We had somebody on the show, ABC Radio Sydney, listened to it between 5:30 and 8 a.m, just a bit of a plug. But the other day was talking about the fact that with the household batteries, it's a very different situation. And so, for instance, out of 500,000 Tesla batteries have been rolled out, there'd been one involved in a fire. So it's a kind of different thing to the household batteries involving a fire. So when you talk about safety, there's an example at the moment, there's a certain batch of LG batteries that also in another brand as well. There's a recall at the moment on those. I think that gives the perception that it's a large and regular part of the problem. It's not. With household batteries, are very safe overall.
Hats off to LG as well. You know, they could have walked away from a market because they've got a problem and it looks bad, but they've actually said, no, we're in this for the long term. We're going to fix these batteries. We've got a technical issue. So household batteries are regulated under really high standards, and in Australia we've got some of the highest standards. The placement of the batteries and the regulation inside the battery. So you've got a battery management system, a kind of little circuit board that's measuring temperatures in and out and voltages in and out. And that kind of level of control means you can make a battery very, very safe. And so that's what we have in Australia now. We have high standards, safe batteries, and yes, there is this blip where some batteries developed by LG are being recalled and replaced with safe batteries, yeah? So I'm not concerned about the safety, but yeah, there is certainly a lot of noise. The media loves to beat it up.
Now, obviously, there's a personal perspective. You get a battery, it enables you to take your solar energy, and rather than using it in the middle of the day where you might be paying 20 cents a kilowatt hour, use it at night time where you might be paying 40 cents or 50 cents, depending on what your bill is. There's that personal advantage there. But from a grid perspective, from a kind of overall perspective, Bryn from Ausgrid, what's the benefit of batteries in terms of the grid? And then can you talk us through that kind of next step, virtual power plants, VPPs and community batteries, and also we've been talking recently, there's been a talk about Ausgrid and other distributors charging a bit of a kind of tariff for feeding in the middle of the day, where all this all fits in.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So, first of all, Ausgrid is the network, so we're the poles and wires and transformers that move the electrons from where it's being generated to where it's being used, which is your home or your business. So we connect customers. There's about 1.8 million customers in our network. We're really the powerhouse of New South Wales. If we could have the next slide, thank you. So we are also installing community batteries to help with that management of solar in the system. And if we go to the next slide, really want to talk to this picture. So we can see the duck, right? So this is the famous duck curve, and what we can see is what happens to grid energy when solar is producing. And we can see that the grid is quite a high load in the morning before the sun is shining, and because Australia has done such a wonderful job with rooftop solar, we see a huge drop in energy. And we're now at the point, you can see 2024, we're moving into what we call unstable grid behaviour. And that means that outages or issues with voltage start to become present because there's too much energy and no one's using it. And so the system is most stable when we have energy that is being produced is also being used. And batteries really fit well into that because they can soak or absorb that energy and then provide it either to the customer or other customers when they need it. And so we can see that energy really starts to ramp up in terms of people are demanding it again once we get past 3 p.m. And that rate of, that rate of increase of energy is really starting to be more and more present. So we're seeing almost no demand and then very quickly very high demand because solar has, it has to just respond to what the sun's doing. And so batteries are really part of the solution to that, as is customers just choosing to use energy when it's being produced. So the best benefit to a customer is to use their own energy that they're producing. You can get a small feed-in tariff from your retailer if you're exporting, which is nice, but it's not as good as using it yourself. And so if you can heat your hot water or your pool pump or run your air conditioner when you've got abundant solar, that stops it going to the grid and creating that instability issue. But we can't always rely on that. We also need, I guess, other forms of managing that, which is batteries. We go to the next slide.
Can I just ask a question on that? Because you talked about heating your water in the middle of the day as well there, right? So this whole shifting of energy is not a new thing. So for instance, who has a giant water container on the side of their house that heats up overnight on a controlled load, the old approach of heating energy, right? So that, for many years, was what we used to do. Why did we do that? We had heaps of coal energy in the middle of the night that we weren't using. So what we did is we used it to heat our water. Now we want to go to the other side and go, hey, we've got heaps of renewable energy in the day. Why can't I'll heat my water up at that time of the day there? Is there a way that kind of networks and energy companies can help people realise this and kind of go, well, my system's set up automatically to heat overnight. Can I change it to be heating up in the middle of the day? We've got an answer here.
Yeah. So we pulled our hot water system off the controlled load, put it on a normal load, and have a timer associated with when it runs. So it's not hard to do.
There you go, Fred. Woo. Fred's a legend. He's already done all the answers. That's good. Yeah, okay. So I'll sorry to interrupt. Keep going, Bryn.
Oh, perfect. No, and that's a great example of customers can take the power back. And sorry for the pun, but you know, really that's what we want to see. We want customers to start being more energy savvy and go, hey, what does my household energy use look like? When am I producing energy? When am I using it? What behaviour changes can I make or change so that I'm getting the most out of my system? And the payback on solar gets better when you're using it most efficiently. Putting it back to the grid is your least best benefit. Now, we've done some work with the two-way tariff, which is it's an opt-in scheme for the first year, but after year one, what we're providing is a very gentle price signal to say, we'd really love you to use your energy between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. because that is when we have too much solar in the system. And we want the system to be stable so that you can enjoy safe, reliable power. But if you do have surplus power and you can either store it or you've got, say, western-facing solar, we will reward you if you give it to the grid after 4 p.m, between 4 and 9 p.m. So there's a small reward there. Now, for the average user, if you make no behaviour change and just have your standard 5 to 6 kilowatt system, you're about $6 a year worse off in terms of tariffs, which is, you know, a cup of coffee. So it's not really a hard signal, but it's a prompt. It's a signal to say, hey, we really want to see you using your energy more efficiently to benefit you and to benefit the grid. So that is something that we're introducing as the network. It's really up to the retailers whether they then pass that through to the customer, because the customer doesn't have a direct relationship with Ausgrid from a tariff perspective. It's all through your retailer. So the other thing that I would say is using the right retailer to benefit you and also the broader system is also an important decision that householders can make.
Yeah, if you've got solar, look for the best. And this is the annoying thing about our energy system in Australia is it's ridiculously complex. We talk to the retailers, they're then dealing with distributors who own the poles and wires and all this kind of stuff. It's even more complex than that. But so when they say that you might charge you 1.2 cents during the middle of the day to feed back in, that's coming off. You might be already being paid 7 cents, and that just 1.2 cents would come off it. So you're still being paid, but it's trying to, you know, if you then did it after 4 p.m, you might suddenly go from 7 cents up to 9 cents, and you'd be paid more to actually feed it back in. So that's
spot on.
Yeah. So, and just with this, can you just explain virtual power plants?
Yep. So very quickly, a virtual power plant is really a way of collecting together everyone's batteries and energy systems. So a big power plant could be producing hundreds, if not thousands, of megawatts, and your home system might produce a few kilowatts. So 5% of a megawatt. And what we'd really like to see is coordinated systems that can bring all of those systems together and then use them in a smart way. So retailers provide these virtual power plants, and essentially they go, we're going to have 100,000 customers or 10,000 customers, or sometimes it's only 1,000 customers that all have batteries. And we're going to control the battery to your benefit, so you'll earn more money, but also for the broader energy system benefit. And so what they'll be doing is pulling together those small systems and treating them like one big system. And so it's like there's a power plant out there, but you're contributing to it. You're like a tiny shareholder of a large power plant.
Yeah, it's good. So just under, we were talking earlier that the government put out a thing where you get between $1,600 and $2,400 if you put a battery on. There's an extra bit where you'll be paid, I think was it $300 or $400?
Between $200 and $400.
Between $200 and $400 a year to be part of a virtual power plant. And Bryn has not explained how exciting this is. Let me explain it this way, right? So in South Australia, there's a council there that's done this, right? So what they've done is that, imagine that during the middle of the day, a coal-fired power station goes down, right? Because it's old and shitty and clunky, right? And suddenly the energy system needs lots of energy. What will traditionally happen now, for instance, in South Australia, is they'll start up a gas-fired power plant. Not only is that bad for the environment, these gas-fired power plants, because they're only used for very small periods, charge enormous amounts of money. Like, instead of being like $10 a megawatt hour, it's like millions of dollars. That's an exaggeration. Do not fact check me, that's wrong. But they charge an enormous amount. So what's happening now is instead of that, you have 1,000 homes that are put together that all have a battery. And when the coal-fired power plant goes down, they all feed little bits of their energy back, and that means you don't need to start the gas-fired power plant over here. Not only is it better for the environment, it's cheaper as well because it's a cheaper form of energy. But because they're able to sell it at that kind of peak energy thing, householders then get to be paid back more money. So I don't even know whether the $200 to $400 is enough, to be honest. You should be being paid more than that, but at least you're getting back something for that. So that's the kind of thing where, again, you're this tiny little bit in a system that's working to replace the other energy there. So it's a really good thing.
So Craig, earlier this month, middle of May, we had a problem with their Raring power station. 2 of the generators went down. And for a period of 4 or 5 hours, the price of electricity went up from, instead of being 30 cents per kilowatt hour, went up to about $17 per kilowatt hour. And our small home battery made $175 in that day, just pumping electricity into the grid.
Yeah, this is it. This is what you can do. This is if you can do it yourself, as you are obviously doing. Do you want to explain to people? Well, we're about to get to your question anyway. So explain to people what you've done at your house. And you've obviously gone beyond. You're not just slapping solar panels on the roof and getting a battery. You've gone to the next level.
Yeah, so we're part of a virtual power plant, and we're paid the full amount of the price of electricity for the electricity we push back into the grid. And obviously the best time to push it into the grid is when it's really expensive, at night during peak demand and when there's problems on the grid.
Yeah, and so who's your energy provider? Who do you go through?
Yeah, so there's a couple of them that can do this, but the one that we use is called Amber Electric.
Yeah. And who's the other one you can use that does that?
There's a Tesla virtual power plant. There's a really good one as well, but there's others as well.
And so you do that kind of through an app, don't you? You just basically use an app.
Yeah, most of the time it's just run for you. You don't have to do anything. You just set it up and it'll export at the right time and import at the right time for you.
Yeah. So it's great. As I said, there are different levels of this, right? You can be not a tech nerd and get it and you save money, or you can go to that next level and kind of go, we're now going to make money off doing this kind of stuff. So where in terms of what you've got at your place, you've put batteries on obviously as well, yep. And then you're actually trading back. Do you have any sense of when you're going to pay off the batteries and be in positive?
Yeah, do I have my slides? I'll
let's get to the slides. Yeah, we are at your slides. Sorry, I have asked your question. This is your question, yes.
Yeah, so you can see our solar panels there on our roof. And just in terms of our journey, we delayed a little bit in terms of getting solar panels on our roof because we thought that we might actually have to replace our terracotta tiles. They'd been installed 25 years ago and they're covered in lichen and we had a few leaks and that sort of thing. And we were waiting to maybe replace them with solar shingles. But that technology never kind of panned out. And we found out that with a bit of maintenance, you can get your terracotta tiles to last 50 years or more. So they got cleaned up, and I think they look pretty good now after being cleaned up.
And less waste, I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So we put as many solar panels as we could on the roof. So it was about 40 solar panels on all the north, west, and east-facing roofs slopes. And it's about 15 kilowatt system, and it cost us $34,000, about $15,000 for the battery and about $19,000 for the panels and the array. And if you go to the next slide, we'll show you, we love our system and we've had no issues with it, and it saves over $5,000 a year for us. So that's, yeah. So
Very
that's a
good.
combination of the avoided electricity cost as well as the money that we make from pushing electricity into the grid at the right times. And that's just the direct savings. Now, when we originally installed the system, it was only about $3,000 a year. But since then, obviously, the price of electricity has gone up a lot, and we've figured out how to make money from exporting electricity into the grid. And having all of that free electricity available has also made it easy for us to electrify everything. We've got rid of all gas appliances in our home, and we've electrified the majority of our transportation as well. And I really love having my electric bike and commuting into the city on that as well. It's not just the EV. And all up, we save in the order of $8,800 a year through our electrification. So it's
going to pay back pretty
substantial.
quickly. Yeah, that's
Yeah, so
substantial.
the payback just on the solar system is about 7 years. And if you convert that into what it's making you each year, it's like a 15% return on the money. So that's a lot better than the money that's it's a lot higher interest rate than what you'd have on your mortgage. So
It's a very good thing. It is. If you look at the payback time, it's generally a lot higher than you're going to get in a savings account or what you're paying on your mortgage. And it's kind of, we don't often look at it that way, but if you look at it as a merely financial thing, it's good. Yeah, that's very good. What are your tips, Fred?
Okay, so the first one is if you're thinking about getting solar and you're not entirely sure how to go about it, don't struggle, get some help. So you'll have a friend or a neighbour that's recently put solar on. It's accelerating so fast. And if you don't, there are really good first-class not-for-profit organisations like Go Solar Macella or Zero Emission Solutions. And both of them have got stands up near us. And the council also has a really structured process that includes one-on-one advice if you need it. And then the second piece of advice that I have is, when you're looking to put solar on, fill your roof, all the north, west, and east-facing slopes. The reason for that is it's much cheaper to do it up front than add them on later on. And your electricity usage over the next, 25 years, or 25, 30 years that your system's going to last, it's going to increase a lot. It could as much as double. So fill your roof. And then the last piece of advice I'd have is, if you're looking to put solar on, is get at least 3 quotes. It means that you'll get a good deal, but it also means that you'll get tailored advice that's specific to your home. And feel free to go back to your installers and ask them to re-quote if you learn things that you want to add or remove. Yeah, so
that's very great tips. And I think the great tips about fill your roof, I reckon about 5 or 10 years ago when you were going to get solar, the kind of approach was to look at how much energy you were using and try to... It was almost like they were minimising how much solar you're getting. I know it was more expensive at the time, but nowadays put on as much as you can because, it's either going to be getting you feed-in tariffs, but as you said, as you move to EVs and other stuff like that, the more you've got, the better. So if you've got a roof that can take it, the more you want to do on that.
We hit a bit of a sweet spot a few years ago, 5 kilowatts by almost 4 hours a day, which is what you produce in the Sydney region. Gave you about the average amount of electricity that an ordinary New South Wales home would use. And so the 5 kilowatt system was the sweet spot. But we've gone way past that. So people are installing more like 8 to 10 kilowatts these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's ordinary.
Let's do a bit of a poll. Who has solar already? Who okay, hands down. Who has batteries? Yeah, that's probably reflects the general thing. Who's thinking about getting a battery? Maybe, there's all this, in November there's going to be, these... paybacks coming from the government, which will be good there. All right, let's do a bit of a Q&A because we have an absolute brains trust here. By the way, Fred, I do think you've set yourself up for this. The reason Fred said all those other people to talk to is he realises that after all the information he's given you, he's going to be swamped at the end of this. You can swamp any of these people, yeah?
Craig, I just realised we've been talking about how fast you get your money back, but we haven't said how much your property actually goes up in value. 2 weeks ago, Domain, the property group, did a report. They looked at...
These people live in Sydney. They know Domain.
Yeah. every property listing in Australia for the last 5 years. And would you believe, on average, a house, which has all these electrification things like Fred, is on average worth $117,000 more than the equivalent house without all the electrification stuff. And an apartment in Sydney is worth $95,000 more than one that doesn't have it all. And we're in the Northern Beaches, Manly is the price premium capital of all of Australia for having electrification in apartments, up to a $600,000 price premium on your apartment. But that's going to be an expensive part.
So how much am I bid for Fred's house? Fred's house, I'm going to start for... All right, questions to the audience. We'll go, your red shirt, you had first.
Yeah, great question. Look, there's fantastic recycling available. It's been developed overseas, and there are companies here in Australia that are creating agreements to set that up. So you've got such valuable chemistries in the lithium-ion batteries that it's all worthwhile. The amount that can be recycled is fantastic. We don't have a lot of it yet. It's coming. Fortunately, there aren't massive numbers yet. Yeah, hopefully
by the time you're finishing with a battery, there'll be a lot more of that in place. So it is a good thing to keep pressure on government to get that in place. I'm asked about waste of solar as well a lot, because obviously it's a concern. People are concerned about that. Well, hang on a second. Within 10, 20 years, we're going to have a lot of solar panels coming off roof. What to happen about? Now, I just want to take you through this, okay? So right now, there's not much solar panel waste, but I don't have the exact thing here, but okay. Let's say that there's going to be 100,000 tonnes of solar panel waste in about 5 or 10 years a year, right? So let's represent that. See my foot there? Okay, that's the graph for the solar panel waste we're going to be having in about 5 or 10 years, right? Currently, every single year, we have about 12 million tonnes of coal ash waste, right? So if that's my foot's the solar panel waste, the coal ash waste is probably about the roof, okay? So if anybody says to you, don't get solar panels because of solar panel waste, they are full of shit. Well, actually, they're not, to be fair. To be fair, they are being concerned. A lot of those people are actually concerned individuals because they do want to. They're concerned about the waste aspect. I am not saying we shouldn't be pushing for solar panel recycling. We are. There's a lot of great schemes going on right now. But I must admit, I haven't been able to... Hey, I've got a bunch of nerds. I should do it with them later on. But I'm sorry, that's in the nicest way. But I actually think that basically at the moment, if you look at it, you look at the drop in coal ash waste each year, it's literally one of the biggest parts of our waste stream totally. You go and look at Lake Macquarie, there's a massive pile of it sitting next to the lake. Every time it rains, I worry it's going to go into the lake and that kind of stuff. But if you put on solar panels, you're probably overall reducing waste because we're reducing the major source of our waste, which is coal ash. So it's not to say we shouldn't have recycling of batteries and solar, but you've got to look at the overall thing, and we're well and truly ahead if you do that. So there you go. Next question from the audience. This lady here on the right.
This question is actually for the chap from Osgrid. Sorry, I can't remember your name. Sorry.
Yeah, Bryn.
Right. Can you please tell me what your readiness is for vehicle-to-grid capability, and when is that coming in?
Look, that's a great question, and I would say that the readiness is going to be based on the inverter standards, which is an Australian standard. So there are a number of trials that are happening around the country for vehicle-to-grid, and they're putting a lot of work behind the scenes to satisfy the safety requirements and the compliance aspects, because the Australian system and Australian electrical standards don't yet cater properly for the vehicle-to-grid component. And so all of those trials are costing a lot of time and energy. So it's going to be driven by that standard process. So I've heard 2025, 2026 as being sort of the proposed dates. There are trials happening in Australian networks for that technology, so we're learning from it, but we're waiting for, I guess, that broader adoption, because the manufacturers need to know what's happening so they can design and build the equipment to then meet the Australian market.
Bryn, is it happening in other countries? Is other countries doing it already?
Absolutely. So Japan's been doing it for probably 10 years, maybe longer. And
so those that are wondering, for vehicle to grid is like, at the moment, your car battery, if you've got an electric car, is probably 5 to 10 times bigger than your normal house batteries. So there's a lot more storage in there. So the question is saying, well, if I charge my battery during the day at my work with solar, I drive home, I can actually run my house off that battery and still have plenty to get back to work the next morning. So that's the kind of next step, which is a great question.
Yeah, and it's going to be a fantastic resource for both customers and the grid because it's going to provide a huge amount of storage and energy response when it's needed. Japan's done wonderful things with it for disaster response as well. So they deal with earthquakes, tsunamis, all kinds of problems, and they mobilise whole fleets of Nissan Leafs to go to those sites, power hospitals and response centres, and running them off grid, but via those car batteries.
And my understanding is that South Australia, the DNSP in South Australia is ready for that and is actually allowing that right now. So we've got it in Australia, in South Australia. So when, is New South Wales really lagging behind in this?
They did it for one car. I'm not sure if it was available for everyone, but yeah, I'm not sure. They have it for everyone now? Yeah, okay. So South Australia's always ahead of us on this stuff. Yeah. Why are they so much better? Okay, next question. All right, next question. At the back there, the lady... Oh, we've had a question for you, madam. The question to your left, the lady in the blue.
Hi, my question is about the tax that you want to implement from the Ausgrid person. There's lots of articles online that aren't too happy about that because although $6.60 as an annual fee doesn't sound much, it's mooted that it's only for the lower sort of systems, and the more realistic estimate is that this tax would be in the range of $100 to $300 based on the average growing size of modern panel installations that actually have a bigger bang for their buck, and making a substantial contribution to electricity supply and thus better for the environment, and that cost is mooted to go up as the years go by. I just wanted your comments on that.
Brent?
Look, I haven't read those articles or around those sort of price estimates and what assumptions have been baked into it. I do know that the pricing team within Ausgrid works very closely with the regulator with our customer reference panel. So that's a group of customer representatives that work very closely with Ausgrid to, I guess, advocate for the benefit of the customer. And we build in pricing structures that are fair and equitable and, I guess, costed across the whole network. So it's postage stamp pricing, so it should be the same for whether you're a rural customer or an inner city customer. And that's part of, I guess, the pricing strategy and methodology. I don't think that pricing window of going from $6 to $100 sounds...
the $6 is for the lower capacity systems.
For around a 5 kilowatt system. So the average residential system is about 5 kilowatts. Ausgrid's probably the best network in New South Wales to connect the solar system to. We allow up to 10 kilowatts. The other two DNSPs or network operators in New South Wales allow 5 or 3 if you're an essential. So you're essentially getting up to double the size of a system that Ausgrid allows because we have a stronger, better network and we want to encourage that customer energy resource to be connected. But really it needs to be paired with batteries in the future, and so we're quite excited with, I guess, the New South Wales government's announcement around helping to reduce the barrier for battery systems to go with solar, and that will see the tariff that you're talking about will actually benefit battery owners as well, because it's going to provide an extra small reward for that beneficial system to provide energy between 4 and 9 p.m.
Do you want to add something to that, Fred?
Yeah, the message I'd give is that the 2 cents per kilowatt hour charge that Ausgrid and other DNSPs are going to put in is quite small relative to your feed-in tariff, which is already low. And basically, you've got a real incentive to use your electricity in the middle of the day yourself anyway. And it's not really going to stop people putting solar on their roofs. And in the future, what will happen is we'll have curtailment of the solar. So you can avoid any charge at all by just reducing the amount of electricity that you're generating and not exporting out into the grid. That's not to say that we shouldn't continue to put pressure on the DNSPs. I think that's a good thing, especially as it relates to giving a fair amount for the electricity that you put into the grid at night. So making sure that as much as they charge people for giving for supplying electricity, they should be paying a symmetrical amount for when we're putting electricity into the grid.
Yep. Good question. All right, next question. Have you got the... anyway, let's go to that lady next to you.
Thank you. Oh, hi, my name's Karen. I'm an independent funeral director and not associated with anybody. And one of the things that I've learned through my research and now conducted a number of funerals is there's no conversation in the industry that's environmentally friendly, and I'd love to know where I can find out more information. And for example, when you are given someone to take care of and they want to give me clothing or shoes or whatever to put in a casket, I'm often having a conversation around maybe let's not burn that or not burn that. But there's no rules or regulations to stop anything other than batteries going in a casket, and I'd love to know where I could work with you.
Okay, I don't think this solar panel thing is going to have much chance, but I will...
But the reason I want to ask that is, can we do anything that's environmentally because of all the gas?
No, totally. I'm just saying that I don't think we'll have the... I'll chat to you afterwards about it.
Thank you.
Because it probably is a bit more of a waste thing. I'll have a chat to you, but I just don't think it's going to draw on the brains trust we have here. The gentleman up there.
Might be hydrogen-based.
That's a good idea. How do you respond to claims that the huge amount of energy input to extract lithium and other metals required for batteries means it's not actually offset, or how long does it take to offset in that case, as well as the demand for those metals causing the exploitation of people in the Congo and places like that?
Do you want to say that?
We've moved, lithium iron phosphate's moved away from some of those more difficult chemistries that are being pulled out of the ground in the Congo. So, we're moving the chemistry along. And I think cost-wise, like any technology you buy, any advance that we have in society, there's a certain amount of research and development goes into produce a thing in the first place. So there's a cost that comes about for that. But compare the cost of that to continuing to burn fossil fuels, I think it absolutely wins out. Spending the effort.
Yeah. The other thing I'd add is that's not the only chemistry, and at the University of New South Wales, they've been doing vanadium redox flow battery research for about 30 years, and I think that's going to be fantastic for grid-scale solar, and it doesn't have the flammability issue of lithium ion as well.
There's some really good... I think the ABC last week actually had a really good piece that kind of showed the feedback time in terms of if you have an electric car, for instance, the carbon emissions. So just so you know, an electric car sitting there, just say this Kia sitting out that's an electric car, has not been driven at all. This is like the showroom of it, and it's sitting next to a Kia that is a petrol car. At this exact point in the showroom, the electric car is worse for the environment. You're right. So that, it has more intensity goes into making that battery and makes it. So at that point, what you have to do is look at over the life cycle. So the whole life cycle of it. And as I said, the ABC did a breakdown of, depends. If you're charging off your solar, the life cycle, the payback of that electric vehicle is way shorter. If you're driving in Tasmania, it's incredibly short because they got almost nearest to 100% renewable energy. If you're driving in Queensland, it's going to take longer of that drive till it becomes a more beneficial thing for the environment. I think that using this is very important to make those arguments and have those discussions and ask those questions. But it's also important to not use those as a way of stopping any progress because, just so you know, none of us, as humans living on this earth, we have an environmental impact. We have it, totally. So it's not asking about how do you make your impact totally zero. It's about going, what's the best thing available to me right now? And you have to ask those questions, but yeah, they have an impact. That electric vehicle is worse right now, but within 5 years it's much better. That's the best available technology we have right now. That's the changes that we need to be making and doing that kind of stuff. So yeah, good question. Keep asking those questions, but don't let them stand in the way of progress, because at the moment, you stand in the way of progress, what is it? Continuing use of fossil fuels, continuing worse climate change. We are going backwards. Thank you very much, everyone, for your questions. I think it's the wrap-up right now. I was told to wrap up. Emma Moraes, you are the winner of the next... Oh, Boomerang Bag set. Go to Boomerang Bags to win your prize. I nearly gave you a totally different prize just because I didn't flip it over. Emma Moraes. Please thank our wonderful panel. A great group of people to answer your questions. Really appreciate it.